Hello, dear one. Do you hold back from saying what truly matters? Are you an introvert that struggles with speaking your truth? This is something called speaking anxiety, and we're going to talk about it today with Dr. Doreen Downing, a conversation worth having. Welcome, Dr. Doreen. So happy to have you here today.
Oh, Anistar, I really thank you so much for this opportunity. I always love being in conversation with you.
Yeah, exactly. So, who do you feel like you're speaking to right now so people can relate to this conversation?
I am an introvert and I am a quiet soul and I'm sensitive. And I think that a lot of speaking programs are about getting people to be more extroverted.
Mm.
Oh, how come we can't have programs for those of us who are introverted and have something powerful to say?
Mm. Yes, love that. And so, what is speaking anxiety exactly?
Oh boy, does it take hold. There's a whole research about what happens in the brain. I won't go into that. I think we all know what anxiety feels like when the heart starts to race and the throat contracts and the back goes up, shoulders go up, and we lose our train of thought. We go
Mm,
blank. Anxiety, I've heard my clients say anxiety hijacks them.
mm. I feel like even myself, years ago, when my husband and I were going through a really challenging part of our relationship, and we would get into an argument, sometimes I wouldn't even remember what started it. And I'd just get tense and I literally would lose my words. Like I wouldn't know what to say next. I was just so emotional. Is that part of it as well?
Well, what you just said about being tense is
Hmm.
that the body contracts.
Yeah.
And that part of our nervous system is in like I'm going to fight
Fight
or
or
I'm
flight?
going to get out of here quickly. But
Yeah.
the other part of our nervous system, which I think a lot of what you help people with and teach is about which we did right before we got on camera, was to ooh, how do you come back to a quieter, calmer state of being in this very moment when you're triggered?
And that's the thing, catching it, right? Like really being like, okay, let's just stop and take a deep breath together. It takes practice to even do that.
Yes, and to do that, let's say if you're on a stage and you find yourself going blank, and how to have enough, what, bravery, courage to say, ooh, I'm going a little fast here. Let me take a breath. Let's
Yeah.
all take a breath. Because if you're all wound up, then the audience is getting wound up, and it's harder to hear when
Yeah.
they're tight and tense.
Yeah. 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 Understood. There's been times that I've been on stage or even on a Zoom and I'm like, let's take a moment to go into a power pose or, let's find something that we can be in for a moment together and just take 3 deep breaths. And it really does ground and center me to move on.
Right. And
So
it brings you to your voice because your voice is inside this cavity called your body.
yeah, and it starts with the breath, right? We can't talk without it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell everybody a little bit more about who you are and how you've helped people overcome speaking anxiety.
Well, let's see. I've been a psychologist for over 40 years. I think what brought me to the practice of this inner work is the fascination about people and they are puzzles. And more recently, with the fact that I am introverted and more quiet, where in my office with just one person, I'm totally available. I'm
Mm,
feeling like I am so with you. I could go so deep, we could explore. However, put me in a group of even maybe 6 people, it was like the heart started to go, and this, what we talked about a second ago, anxiety. And what is that all about? So
mm,
I would say that finally, it's a whole nother story how I chose to take a class, even though I had a PhD in psychology. I chose to take a class at the local community center called How to Overcome Your Fear of Public Speaking.
mm. Beautiful. And so, what about your journey really prompted you to start helping others with this?
Well, I think that I did start that journey. And one of the classes I took was with a teacher who said, Michelangelo saw the angel in the marble. And I think that's what occurred to me was that with all my PhD work, all my professional layers, that inside of me was an angel.
Mm,
This more tender spirited self that was too afraid to go out and speak. And what did she have to share anyway? What was valuable? I couldn't even get to her without some deep inner work to find her, because that voice that's locked inside is the one that I think is what is powerful. It's authentic, it's true to who you are.
yep.
So I would say that was the journey to find my voice. Uh,
Mm. Yeah, and I know that that's what you teach. It's literally called Find Her Voice.
yes,
And we're not talking about just people who are aspiring public speakers, correct?
right, right. Because I think life is your stage. I mean,
Mm,
going at the breakfast table with my husband, I needed to say something about a problem that I felt like we were having, and I needed to tap into my sense of self. I needed to listen. I have a whole process that I teach people,
uh-huh.
but how to drop down and then find the courage, I call it courageous confidence, to say, honey, there's something I want to say to you. And oh, wow. At the table is just as important with your husband is just as important as being on a stage with hundreds of people giving your message.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
And so when we are confronted with that fear, like that conversation with your husband or mine and I had a lot of fear around conversations with money, because it's like, okay, how can I speak up and say what it is that I desire if I did not make that money to do it, right? And it took me years of practice to really get there. So, what would you say is an important thing or a tool or something you can give us right now about facing that fear and finding your voice in that moment?
Oh, Annie Star, thank you. I think you'll understand this one. It's stillness.
Mm-hmm.
It's a quiet place inside where you can drop. I've said it several times, and I could even show, drop down to the core essence of who you are. And it's a journey to find that core essence, because that's where voice is, that's where your truth is. But you have to learn how to drop down and how to listen. And you have to not be somebody who's trying to force the words. You have to be somebody who's curious. What is it inside that I need to say that's lined up with my true self?
Mm-hmm.
And how do I face the fears? Are people going to really understand me? Are they going to walk out? All the fears that we have around, which is anxiety, by the way, right? All the
Mm-hmm.
fears we have about, are people really going to hear what I have to say? So, a lot of that.
Right. Like, how are they going to respond to me? Like, there's definitely been periods of time where I was more stuck in, how can I say? There was a period of time that I was an angry person. Let me put it that way.
Oh,
It took practice and it took a lot of coaching, a lot of things for me to get through that period of time. And I found that when the anger would bubble up in me, that I was afraid to say exactly what was on my mind. And I found that it was important for me to remember that when I speak my truth, regardless of how they respond, because a lot of times it would be reaction, right? Like that knee jerk reaction. And that's what I was afraid of. I was afraid of how they were going to respond. And so that's definitely part of the equation. That's part of the fear of like, how are they going to actually receive me? And I've learned to soften. I've
oh,
really learned to
that's
soften the edges.
exactly where I'm going. That's exactly where I was going. I'm so
Yeah.
glad you said that.
Yeah.
Say more about softening.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And and then they're able to receive more openly and with that curiosity.
Yes.
So years ago, I went through the Landmark Forum curriculum, if you're familiar with that.
Yes.
And one of the things they say is, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? So you could push your righteousness
Uh-huh.
or you could just, choose. to be happy about something.
Well, here's a tip because of what you just said about soften, because yeah, whatever kind of energy, and especially if it's a more angry kind of energy that you want to share, there is a way in which you can speak in such a way that has a little more, I mean, it has the anger, but it's calmer and quieter
Mm,
than blasting at somebody, which is
mm,
it startles people. I mean, we're animals
mhm.
basically. So I loved what you said. So here's a tip about how to soften,
Sure.
and that is in the area of your eyes, soften the sockets.
Mhm.
And when you do that, your cheeks can relax a little bit, and the neck and your shoulders drop just by dropping
Mm,
into this sense of softening your eyes. And
mhm.
I know that in traditional public speaking programs, they talk about eye contact, good eye contact.
Y
And it has a little bit, for me, a little bit of a harshness to it as opposed to a soft gaze.
Uh-huh.
So if I'm speaking to a group of people and my eyes feel like I'm soft and I'm gazing at them as opposed to making sure I'm staring or making sure I'm having eye contact, it's
Right.
just, to me, the energy, the energetic channel that opens up is way more welcoming. It's like,
Mhm.
hello there, I'm paying attention to them, but
Yeah.
while I'm speaking, and I'm listening to them while I'm speaking,
Yeah.
so there's this whole new way of being fully present and with, which I call relational presence, being
Yeah.
with yourself and in relation with one listener at a time.
I love that. Thank you. Yeah. Even though I use the word anger, I think it was more frustration and impatience. I'm just like, didn't you hear what I said? Like,
Yes,
I'm the team captain. There's 100 of you. I'm trying to keep you all in order. Like, please just
yeah,
follow directions. Right. So softening the request and things like that. But that is such a great tool, just softening the eye sockets. Because I did it just then and my jaw got more relaxed.
right.
So yeah, I hear
The
that. I feel
tone of
that.
your voice, the
Mhm.
resonance that reaches people, which is energy, right? I just heard about a couple of days ago a process, and this is for parents who find themselves yelling at their children.
Mm,
It's called quiet speech, that you actually go over to the child, you look at them eye to eye, and you lower your voice and you get quiet and you make your request in a quiet tone of voice. Quiet speech. It's one of the
yeah.
tips for those who find themselves yelling at children.
I love that. As a mom, there's definitely been times that that has happened. It's like,
Yeah.
I've asked you to brush your teeth 5 times. Come on, honey.
At least you had the honey.
Yeah. Oh, we're still nice about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what would you say is like the moment that you realized that this is it? This is what I want to share. This is how I want to help people. This is what I want to offer.
I would say it was that class when I realized that the angel in the marble is locked inside, and that's what happens for people, is that their true essence is somehow through the years, whether you were born as an introvert and a quiet soul, or whether a family situation or trauma or culture, whatever the reasons are that make it not so possible for you to have confidence as a little kid, is, I think that that's what, when I heard there's an angel in the marble, that's I knew that that's what I wanted to do, is help people tap into that inner sense of self and express it. Yeah, I'm a psychologist and I've been curious about puzzles and people and human behavior, but I think this one aspect of my profession where I'm really helping people do the inner exploration, which is different than something like Toastmasters. I did Toastmasters, and it gave me lots of how to do vocal variety and lots of performance techniques, but it didn't take me where I needed to go and where I can take people on the deeper inner journey to find the soul of who they are, the essence of who they are, and what wants to be spoken from there.
Yes, yes, I love that. Yeah, a lot of my clients, that is one thing that I really work on with them is like just even knowing your truth before you speak it.
Yeah.
We're bombarded with so many things in our outside reality that leaning into like, is that true for me what they just said? Or am I leaning back and it's a no? And having that internal guidance first and foremost before being able to share what's on your mind.
Yes.
So, yeah. What would you say is the one thing that, you know, people need to understand the most about this kind of work?
Well, it goes along with something that you just said, actually, about the leaning and how do you really know what your truth is? It
Mm,
goes back to what we were talking about, is being quiet with yourself so you could actually tune in,
mhm.
down, tune
Yeah.
in and down, not tune in and up to your brain, because
Mm,
it's going to take you in lots of circles. But how do you sense in your physical body? And you went lean in or lean back.
mhm.
I mean, that we all have ways of, and I think that's knowing ourselves, is how do we know our truth? How do we train ourselves to listen, to tune in to what's true for ourselves? Because that's a whole process in itself.
Mhm.
And then how do we, find the words, which is a whole process in itself. And then how do we express it? Some of what we said earlier about, ooh, what am I going to say? And is it going to be received?
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Oh, and one more step.
Mhm.
After you say what you say and the people have a response, that's a whole nother learning in a journey, how to deal with people responding to something that you said.
Right, or again, the reaction, right? Like the
Yes.
reaction's much harder to deal with than somebody actually responding thoughtfully or compassionately.
Yeah. Difference between reacting and responding. Yes.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and having that responsibility of how we respond to things.
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel like that way about everything in life and our perception of how we respond to things and even what is happening in our outside field right now, the world, the state that it's in, and how do we actually respond to it is how we feel inside. And so when we're doing that inner work, then that outer reality doesn't have to have as big of a impact that creates anxiety or depression or, numerous other things.
Right.
Yeah. What would you say, like, do you have a client success story you want to share with us? Like somebody in particular that just really stands out for you
Yeah.
of like, wow, they really had this fear and anxiety and they overcame it and now they're a confident speaker.
Yes. Well, that's what my work is about. So I could pull out any
I'm
number of
sure.
examples. But so let me just see what comes for right now today with this audience is yeah, because I'm working with people who feel like they have more sensitivity and they're in environments where they're expected to push themselves. And this was a woman who was in medical cells, and she was expected to go into offices. You've got the gatekeepers there, who are protecting the doctors and kind of, oh, here comes another salesperson. So that she already was feeling reluctant, and it was hard to break through those initial kind of saying, hello, can I share with you what I have to offer the doctor, for whatever kind of medical sales she was doing. But
Mhm,
so we worked first on this. Well, what is it that she's anticipating is going to happen? You have to
mhm,
the first thing in my process is identifying the fear. So that,
mhm.
I know you asked for one thing, and I don't want to go all the way into my process, but I guess
Yeah.
the very, very first thing, Anastara, is fear is important, and learning how to find what's on the other side of fear, so
Mhm.
that what's in your way is the way. So what she and I worked on is, what's in the way are these gatekeepers, these people who are treating her not like trying to push her out. So how does she stay strong, and what is she really afraid of? So
Yep.
facing that fear first. And then when she got to the doctors, it was like an authority. So then we had to work on some father issues around
Ah,
speaking up to a powerful authority figure.
authority. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
I would say what was so exciting, because my program is about presence, connection, and authenticity. And this example I'm giving you is not anything about being on a stage. But
Mm-hmm.
later, what she did have to do was go on a stage, and people came up to her afterwards because the company was asking her to take on more responsibility and start
Uh-huh.
training people
Uh-huh.
because of what she could do finally.
Mm.
And people were just saying, "You're so natural." So I love that kind of outcome of people feeling natural and able to express who they really are. I mean, she
Yeah.
didn't have to be a force in those doctors' office. She just had to be more. You use the word too, that it's like
Yeah.
she had to just slow down,
Right.
calm,
Yep.
take her breath, and say hello.
Mm.
Of like with the soft eye thing we were talking about.
Yeah.
Ah, hello.
Yeah, that's amazing. Oh, I love that. And I love that you said what's in the way is the way. That's definitely one of my mainstay mantras, quotes.
Yes,
And seeing it all the way through too, like seeing an end place that you want to be, and what's in the way is the way. And once you get through that, then you can see it all the way through to your goal or your accomplishment that you want to reach.
I have one
So,
one
yeah.
idea that goes along with what you just said, in terms of mindset around fear, is that, or what's in the way, is that fear can lead you to a treasure. And think
Mm.
of it that way. It's like, oh, I'm no longer afraid of my fear. I have to go towards it because, hey, treasure is just there on the other side.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, it is. I like to say, digging for the gold in the shift. How
Yes.
can we shift this right now? So, my dear, I know that you have a masterclass coming up soon. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, it's Find Your Voice,
Mm-hmm.
and where I'm going to be talking about 3 secrets that are about how to face, embrace, and replace fear, or any of the
Mm-hmm.
blocks that are stopping you from getting to what we're talking about, your treasure, the other side of fear, of what you truly want. It's an hour, and it's free, and it's open to anybody who feels like they could benefit from some guidance. And it's a group experience, and I make it safe. And that's one of the things I hear back from people, is that the journey towards fear is kind of scary, but I make it safe. I hold people's hand. It's not
Yeah.
that I have their back, I hold their hand.
Yes, I love that. When is it?
It's going to be Thursday, a week from today, 11 a.m. That's Pacific time,
Mm-hmm.
11 a.m. Pacific time.
Awesome. Awesome. Wonderful. Yeah, that is the day after my Synchronicity for Success masterclass. We are on a masterclass roll together, sister. I love it.
Yes.
So for those of you who are watching, the link is there and you could just pause it and type it if you want to. And we're going to do our best to make sure it's in the comments below. You can also find out more about Dr. Doreen on her website, doreendowning.com. And Doreen, is there anything else that you want to share? Any advice? Anybody who's even afraid to even start the journey and sign up?
Well, I think this John Kabat-Zinn, wherever you go, there you are.
Hmm.
And the idea is, are you comfortable being who you are and speaking in any situation?
Yep.
That's what I want to leave people with, is that life is your stage. Everywhere you go, there you are. And I would encourage people to value their quiet voice,
Mm.
and see it as their true power.
I love that. Your voice is your true power. It's so true. It really is. Well, Doreen, it has been such a pleasure to have you and speak with you. This is fun. I did series and series of interviews years ago, and I think I'm going to jump back into it again. And I love it. I love having intelligent conversations with beautiful, inspiring people. And you've sparked a little inspiration in me, my dear, today. So thank you for that.
Fabulous.
Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts that you want to share with us before we close?
From the bedroom to the boardroom, your inner voice is your most powerful asset.
Mm. I love that. So, so good. Well, let's all take a deep breath together where we can find our inner voice, living in your truth. And please do join Doreen for her masterclass next Thursday at 11 a.m. And hopefully, I will see some of you there. I'm going to do my best to be there. And let's just have a little moment to say goodbye. Blessings to you, and I hope you're creating a beautiful life.